Hey everybody, if you're watching this, you're watching the replay. So this is recorded as a live video. So if you want to just scoot forward maybe a minute or two till folks gather, we'll get started. But I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you're having a wonderful day, whenever, wherever you're watching. Maybe it's night. But we're going to give it here a couple of minutes and see who can join. And I'm going to slowly taper off the copyrighted music that I've got playing. That's actually the soundtrack to some of the Bing Crosby, Bob Hope road movies, which is cool. Hey, Tyler, welcome in. Wow, all the way from Poland. That's awesome. We'll get started here in just a minute. Old radios, welcome in. Nice, got some 45s. All right, we got a few people. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and putting a thumbs up on your way in. I would appreciate it. And we will get started in just a minute. Okay, so apparently I ruffled some feathers during my last video. Now, I'm not entirely surprised, but it's always interesting to me. I've gotten to the point, I've done this long enough now where I can sort of predict what I think how people will react. Now, I'm not always right. Sometimes they surprise me. Greetings. Welcome in, my friends. But yeah, sometimes it's a bit more or a bit more forceful, or sometimes it's the opposite. Maybe I think I'm going to rile some people, ruffle some feathers, and I don't. But this one I did, and boy, nothing can tear slash at the heart of this community like hinting or even insinuating that a ceramic cartridge would in any way outperform a magnetic. And it's funny because a lot of people out there have a fundamental misunderstanding about what a ceramic cartridge is and isn't. Same thing about magnetic. I'm not immune from that myself. I definitely am in a learning mode, not a teaching mode most of the time. But this was an interesting thing too. One thing I learned early on in doing YouTube is that you can't go on the internet, and it doesn't have to, it could be YouTube, it could be a forum somewhere, and just say your opinion and think that you're safe from or immune from input. That's putting it mildly. So you can go on there and say, my favorite color is blue. And I guarantee you there'll be 10 people to 1 saying, yeah, you're an idiot. Blue's for idiots. You know what I mean? Like they don't like, it's not okay to say, well, I like it. It's my favorite color. Or I like, vacationing in this place versus that. No, that's wrong. That's stupid. So it just goes with the territory. So you get into any sort of hobby where you have people that are passionate, people that are educated, self-taught especially, and you will run into gatekeeping, which, if you're not aware, is basically people that are gatekeeping the hobby by holding tight reins on. It's kind of becomes like a clique, like a social club, like in high school, like the cool kids club. And I've seen this principle replicated in multiple disciplines, not just record collecting. Every collecting group, whether it be trains, Hardy Boy books, that's a really not nasty. It's a really volatile, passionate group of people that are into that. There's some very, very wonderful and kind people. Most people are, and that's just it. In anything, most people really, really are. But you get these people that are very, very passionate. And so, you know, if somebody's saying that something that they feel is incorrect, then you are going to hear about it, you know, and it goes with the flow, and it's in everything. Baseball, every sport, every performing art, it's the exact same everywhere. So it's going to happen here too. And I think we've all experienced it in most of us, I hope, are on the receiving end, if anything, not on the dishing out end. But yeah, so that's a whole thing there. Yeah, I got the Audiophile, riled them up. Salvation Army, you're hurting. I shop at your store all the time. Your obsession with suitcase players and cheap turntables is insane. Just admit they're bad. 3 to 3.9 is the maximum tracking force. My friend, please stay tuned. Please stay tuned. I'm so glad that you're here. Old radio, Sonotone 2T is good. Yeah, that's a ceramic in the 49 Philco. Fantastic. For playing 78s, exactly. Do I think that I'm so glad that it's not just the regular crowd. So we've got some riled people here, which is good. I'm so glad. Do I think that ceramic cartridges are better than magnetic? Audiophile SPU has a recommended tracking force of 4 grams. Yeah, this is another Audiophile. This is an Audiophile DJ moving magnet. This is for DJ purposes. It's from the Concord series. And yeah, it's a heavy tracker. It's also not as compliant, so the cantilever is a bit stiffer. 4 grams, I think 4, maybe even 4.5. I think 4 grams on this, which is you may say is heavy. Interesting. Let's start out with this fact. Not a lot of people know this. The tracking force, which we know is dictated by the cartridge. So records don't dictate a tracking force. Records were designed originally, the LP record I'm talking about here. This is going to be fun. The LP record was designed to track up to 9 grams. Is that the best way to make your record last as long as possible? No, but they were designed to withstand it. Also, we need to understand that whether or not you are using a 9 gram tracking, you know, that would be rough. But if you were on the high end of that, or a 1.5 gram super gentle light tracker, you are, every single time you play that thing, you're carving that groove out. And it's just a matter of time. It can be a long time, but it's a matter of time before there's nothing left, right? So the act of playing any analog media, anytime you slide a stylus through a groove, play tape, drag it over a head, you are wearing it down further and further. Now, the question is, are you doing it unnecessarily high, more intensely? You know what I'm saying? Or are you damaging? You know, how do you draw the line between wear and damage? At the outset, let me say this. I completely agree. It's just fact. Everything I say is fact, to the best of my knowledge, by the way. And by the way, let me preface this. This is all my opinion, my experiences. I can and will be wrong, but this is my opinion. My experience is what I personally believe to be true. But yeah, if you play a record 100,000 times on a Crosley Cruiser that tracks at 5 grams, which is what the cartridge dictates in that case, a ceramic Chuo Denshi CZ800, which is the design that often is cloned, and what I showed in my thumbnail. That's the common type, designed to track between 5 and 6 grams, and therefore it needs to in order to play. If it tracked at 1 gram, it would damage the record because it's so non-compliant. It's stiffer cantilever. It would just carve that record up from too light of tracking. The cantilever pressure capacity, is what dictates that specific tracking force. But yes, I will concede it's 100% true. Of course, Crosley Cruiser tracking at 5 grams with a conical stylus is going to wear out your record faster than than one tracking at 1.5 on a cartridge that's designed to track in that range. Here we have another very popular cartridge. This is the Audio Technica 3000 that we can't think of the name of exactly. The one that we featured on the thumbnail. This has a fan steel cartridge, a stylus on it right now for playing 78s. But this tracks between 2.5 and 4 grams. So a little bit lighter range than the Audiophile, but this cartridge is designed to track the way it's designed to track. Here we've got an Audiophile OM5E, another popular entry-level cartridge. This is designed to, this is an elliptical. Ellipticals typically have to track lighter, having a sharper tip, riding lower in the groove. You don't want the tracking heavier with an elliptical is a bad idea. Anyway, this is like a 1.5, 1.75 gram. And yeah, it's again, dictated by, what else do we have? Here's another 3600L. That's what I was trying to say. There's a 3600L with a stock conical. Here is this is a vintage Grado GF1 packed with mud, which is strange and disconcerting the first time you try replacing a stylus on that. This is like a 1.75 tracker. Here's another Grado Prestige Gold. This is my most expensive stylus. Now, this is entry level to people that are, down the rabbit hole of moving coils and $20,000 cartridges and things. It's $260. But this is an entry-level channel. And Salvation Army, my friend, this whole channel is specifically curated and designed for the entry level. Cheap, affordable, plastic, imported. I mean, this is all the whole chat. Everybody on YouTube is doing the best of the best, the most expensive, the upgrades, this, that. We've done upgrade stuff too. But this channel is and always will be for the entry-level beginner or the entry-level enthusiast, whether you're there by choice or not. Some people can't afford expensive stuff, but they can afford something cheap. And I say, and I maintain, that even if you can't afford something high-end, doesn't preclude you from being a part of this community. I am hopefully an opposite of a gatekeeper. I want people to be a part of this. So if all you can afford is a suitcase record player, $39, that's fine. Play your records. Enjoy them. Enjoy them. This world has a lot of problems that pale in comparison to the simpleness of, or I should say the other way around. The problems of playing a record on a cheap record player pale in comparison to the problems of this world. That's what I'm trying to say. Play your records. Enjoy them. Most times they're not worth fussing over. Just enjoy them and play them. Yes, there's better equipment out there. Yes, there's more expensive, better options. Yes, you can make your records last longer by playing them on higher end equipment sometimes. But don't stop playing. Don't be like, well, I can't get into record collecting because I can't afford a decent setup. I say get what you can get, upgrade when you can and if you want to and as your budget allows. And in the meantime, just have fun. Look at my first few videos on this channel. Look at the equipment I was using, okay? And I'm even to this day, I'm not using super expensive stuff. The most expensive anything we've ever had on this channel is I have reviewed the Audio-Technica LP7, which was $800. That was a legitimately mid-range turntable. For me, high-end, more than I needed. Very rugged, built like a tank, an amazing unit. And if people say that's junk, they just haven't seen it. I will, everybody's got an opinion, but some stuff people will just say it's junk and they've never touched it and they just don't know. Anybody that says U-turn is junk hasn't handled and had a U-turn. Maybe it's not good from a design standpoint. Maybe they don't like it, but you can't say it's junk. Okay, that's my opinion. Same thing goes with the LP7. It's a tank. It's an absolute tank. The $1,200 turntable, I got a vertical thing by Cool Geek up there. I put an asterisk around that because it really shouldn't be. The $800 Audio-Technica feels expensive. It feels higher end. This thing, the Cool Geek, feels decent. It feels like $150, $200 decent, not $1,200 decent. So that's the most expensive MSRP we've ever reviewed, but it's also got a $12 3600. I'm really glad, by the way, the new the re-release of the Audio-Technica 2022 clear acrylic thing they're doing, I think AP, what do they call it, AP20 or something like that, that they've actually put a decent moving coil cartridge on it. But I digress. So all of that to say is that it's an entry-level channel, and the gatekeepers are out there, and that's fine. They're passionate about it, and they want people to get it right. So they feel compelled to say, you're wrong when you're wrong. And I want to, I've learned so much from you guys. You've corrected me. So many people have taught me so many things. And I've learned most of what I've learned because I was very much a beginner. I had record players as a kid, my little Fisher Price, the real one, not the toy one. And then starting in 2015, I got back into this. It was, cheap Chuo Denshi clones and Skywind mechanisms. First couple turntables. Go look at the first videos. I thought it was quite a setup. I had a wooden all-in-one and a little USB turntable, and I thought I was hot stuff with my 2 record players. And I want people to feel that they're proud of their setup no matter what it is. But what I was going to say is, even though we've reviewed up to that $800 level and beyond, I personally don't have expensive turntables. And even to this day, I've got a Technics SLB5 changer on my left I got for free. It's worth about, this one's worth maybe 150 if in perfect condition, which it's in, but not an exceptionally high value turntable. A lot of other Technics belt drive turntables. I got a Technics direct drive linear that was given to me, gifted, but again, 100, maybe 100 in working condition. I've got a Fluence sound dampening thing here. Obviously, I've got a lot of turntables in storage. What am I listening to right now? I've got some Fluences, U-turns. I've got Audio-Technicas. I've got other things as well. We've reviewed Marantz. We've reviewed stuff out of the Project Factory. We've reviewed stuff from, what's the company that bought the German company? Anyway, we've reviewed that. Automatic was actually not a good one. On my right, I've got a $199 Sony automatic. Up here, I've got the Philco, 49 Philco. So even though, I've moved up a little bit from where I started, I'm still keeping it pretty humble here. I feel like, I hope like. Most of this stuff was either gifted, thrifted. My tape deck, my Yamaha amazing tape deck, $10. My 8-track player, $20. My CD player, which is still on from yesterday, that sucks, $10, $15, thrift store. My radio tuner was a review sample that I was able to keep. My mini disc player down here was done on a trade with a friend. And my speakers, everything is, pretty humble. I'm not an audiophile. I'm proudly not an audiophile. I don't want to be an audiophile. Going to some of the other videos that are out there right now and the quotes about audiophiles, I fully believe that audiophiles listen to their equipment with music. And if you're listening to your equipment with music, you're an audiophile. Now, this is my objective opinion, but it's been quoted, and this quote I agree in. And maybe it's not bad to be an audiophile. That's fine. I personally just am not one, and I'm proud not to be one. Whereas, I listen to music first on my equipment. I use equipment in order to facilitate music, not music to facilitate listening to my sound system. And that I can't attribute that quote right now because I don't know who it is, but it's out there. It's a well-known quote. My opinion, guys. This is all my opinion. I could be totally wrong. Probably am. Probably totally wrong. It's not the first, won't be the last. I'm going to do some comments here, and then we're going to jump into the purpose of this video, which is to go through some of these spicy comments in the video where I compared the ceramic and the magnetic. And I stand by my initial assertion. Some people are like, you need to change your premise. You need to change. But no, I stand by my statement. How could I stand by my statement? Stand by and I'll tell you. I'm going to go through some comments, guys. So yeah, the suitcase, the entry levels are here to stay. We're looking out for the cheapest, most triggeringly entry-level stuff. And honestly, not for the purposes of ticking people off, although I think it's interesting that anybody could get ticked off by what somebody else wants. You know what I mean? That's just strange. I like the color yellow. You like yellow? You're a moron. You should like red. Who cares what they like? Who cares what they listen to? But people do. People do. And I contest that they're not bad. Stand by that one too. They're not bad. They're great. There are better ones, but anything that brings you joy isn't bad. So if somebody fires up their suitcase player, puts a smile on their face, how can you say that's bad? How can you say that's bad? Doesn't hurt anybody. Who cares? All right, let me get caught up here. Ceramic cartridges use considerably more tracking force than a decent moving magnetic cartridge will. As a result, it will wear out your records much quicker. That is true, something we've never contested. But it can sound better. It's also ideal in certain situations, like playing 78s. Cork sniffery. Uncle Dan's, I like that. Cork sniffery. Yes. This is the Louis the 15th, please. I will take 2 milliliters tableside. So early LPs had some different material mixes, vinylite, a lot of early, like I always say this, but my Patsy Cline 57 over here, inaugural album, Decca, that's a styrene record. Not a lot of people realize there was styrene 12-inch records. But again, nobody playing that record in 57 was tracking at 1.5 grams. That being said, I will choose to use a record player and stylus, a setup that will be lighter tracking now because I want to preserve it. It's like, 80 years old, 50, 60, 75 years old, 70 years old. Exactly. Most of us didn't get a Porsche as a first car. And that's an analogy I use a lot. So a lot of times I'll be like, compare it to cars, like say a Yugo, which is like the Gen X default crappy car. But take a Yugo or a Rolls Royce, Rolls Royce Phantom, my dream car. Take a Rolls Royce Phantom, extended wheelbase, owner driven, and a Yugo or something, a Metro, whatever, 3-cylinder engine Metro. Will they both get you from point A to point B? Yes. Is it a lot more fun to ride in a Rolls Royce? Arguably, yes. Because it's way more expensive. It's a $600,000 car versus nowadays a $50 car, $150 car. Is it better? Yeah. Is it made out of better material? Yes. Is it is it going to damage me? No, I hope not. Unless there's fumes pouring in under the hood. I've had cars do that. I had a Ford. What was it? A Ford Taurus once, and I blew the engine on the highway. And it started pumping in steam and smoke under the dash. I was literally running from the car, waiting for the mushroom cloud behind me. Which, being a child of 90s action movies, I wouldn't look at the explosion. I would run away from it in slow motion with the explosion happening behind me, but I wouldn't turn around to look at it. The 3600 is great. People say, well, it's $12. How good can it be? But it's surprisingly really, really good. Somebody said in the comments of the video, we're going to look at those comments, by the way, I promise, that it really gets channel separation. It's got a carbon fiber cantilever. It is, private labeled for certain. I think RIAA private labels this. It's a great little cartridge. And it's funny is it's OEM on a lot of entry-level magnetic setups. And it's not the cheapest moving magnetic cartridge out there, but it is one of the cheapest. But it's also really low cost of ownership. It's a $25 cartridge, and I can put a brand new stylus on there for $12, $15, and it sounds fantastic. And now, where is it? I still got it over here somewhere. I think I moved it up here. Now you can upgrade to this elliptical. There's the elliptical. So if you tire of the conical and want to go up to the elliptical, this is like $30. So there's a lot. This is a great low cost of ownership, because if you're running a higher end cartridge, I think the stylus on this bad boy is like $100 or $70 or something like that. So that's gonna be a lot more expensive. Now you can cut corners if you know what you're doing. For instance, like a lot of the Audiophile fit each other and things. All the prestige Grados will fit each other. In fact, This guy needs a new stylus. The cantilever's naked. There's no stylus at the end of that. So you could take a Grado Prestige, put it on this GT1 or GF1, and it would fit. Did I mention they're mud packed, which is weird. And I think these are moving iron. I don't think these are moving magnet. But anyway, same basic principle. Yeah. There you go. I don't know where I was going with that. They sound good. I don't think anybody says that's a bad cartridge. Now, there are other moving magnets out there, some of which unfortunately have a red tip. People assume, oh, it's like the first generation Crosley Revolution looks like a Soundburger, had a red tip magnetic cartridge, and people assumed it was a ceramic, which it wasn't. Conversely, you've got companies that know, like Victrola has done this once or twice. They know that some people now have gotten wise to the idea that a red tip cartridge often means ceramic, often means, a cheaper alternative in most cases, like I said in my video, to a magnetic. And so they've started making white tip ceramics, white tip ceramics, like the Victrola, what is it? The little plastic suitcase thing. I got it right down here. In fact, I'll show you. Let me show you what I'm talking about. What is this thing called? I think this is cool. I actually use this a lot. I like this little guy. What is this thing called? Bought this not too long ago. Respin. It's made of recycled plastic, but you will see that cartridge at first glance may look like a magnetic because it's white, but it's not. It's a ceramic with a housing made to look like it's not a red tip Chuo-Denshi clone like all the others. But it is. So it goes both ways. This is fun. It's punchy. It's got a little bit of bass. They got a proprietary speaker cabinet design, like kind of like a Bose waveguide kind of thing going on in here. It's fun. I like this little thing. I use it quite a bit. In fact, that's lately been my go-to on the weekends when I want to just spin something up. I agree. LP60X's Salvation Army are better than suitcase players, but you need speakers, and some people buy those and they don't realize they need speakers. But yeah, LP60 with good speakers or any speakers is probably going to sound way better than a suitcase player. Doing good, Mark, my friend. Welcome in. Wow. That's crazy, Uncle Dan. That's awesome. That reminds me. I've got one of those. I reviewed it. It's I think it's like a carbon fiber glass platter mat. I need to get that out and use that some more. Picked up a Sansuis are cool, dude. Accutex cartridge. Nice. Audiophiles are chasing the dragon for sound. Yeah, you're always behind the 8-ball, right? I just dropped $100,000 on cables yesterday. And now Pete down the street, he's got $200,000 audio cable. I can't listen to my music now. And of course I'm not listening to anything during the day. I got to wait till the good clean power comes on at night. Michael Framer reportedly had a separate power line dropped in. Yeah, I agree. Of course. Michael Framer commented on one of my videos once. And him and I actually agree on a point. And that is that the only downside to entry-level equipment is the potential of somebody getting something that doesn't sound as good as a higher-end piece of equipment. And therefore, especially if they're new to this, writing off vinyl as bad technology and saying, well, records suck. I heard one once and it was, it was thin and it sounded bad. I'll stick to my digital. That I can see. 100%, I agree. That can and probably does happen. However, most people get into this like any hobby and realize, wow, so the Tyco plastic train set from the 80s isn't the best kind. Maybe I need a Bachmann. Maybe I need a Lionel or something like that. And they upgrade. They start off with a suitcase player. I've had people tell me in the comments, I'm going to upgrade now to, I'm running a SL 1200 like everyone else because I started with a suitcase player last year. That's what I like to hear. You know what I mean? People getting, if they have an interest in upgrading, upgrade. If you don't. Yeah, I love it. I love his video too when he went to a few years before we were at CES. He went to I think a year or two before. He went to the Crosley booth. He was wearing like a head helmet camera. It's really weird. He's wearing a helmet camera, a chest camera, like a GoPro, and he went to CES to the Crosley booth like he was incognito or something, which he wasn't. He wasn't claiming he was. Oh, thank you, Mark, for the super chat, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate that. That'll help buy more cheap imported Chinese junk, and I appreciate that so much. So he was actually impressed with some of the stuff because they were doing the project partnership on the C10 and C20, and people just don't know. Still people call suitcase players Crosleys, and they think Crosley's making everything undercover, and all. They don't realize Crosley doesn't make anything. Audio-Technica doesn't make anything besides their cartridges and headphones, microphones. They don't make turntables. Victrola, none of those companies make record players. All they are is reselling. Sony doesn't make this record player. Sony doesn't make this record. It's not like the old days. The brands are marketing equity only in entities. I know how it works. I've talked to people on the inside at multiple companies. They all go out every year to Chinese trade shows with companies that are no name to us, and they shop and they shop and they shop and they shop out, and they make deals with companies that say, we'll take 10,000 units of this, 30,000 of that, and they either slap their name on it, or they work an OEM partnership where they say, all right, we want to bring to market this, like the 1975 Crosley 1975 unit, which is cool. I think they might still sell that some places. Very 70s looking. Like it was made overseas, probably by Lee Tack is my guess. I don't know that for a fact. And but they actually designed it in-house. So Crosley designed the 1975. However, other turntables that the record players they sell, they don't design. Or they take a different variant. Like the Crosley C100 comes off the same assembly line as the Audio-Technica LP120s, but it's spec'd out a little different. So it's not just as simple as slapping their name on it, and they certainly aren't making them. I guarantee you, Crosley, which is based in Kentucky, and their distributor are not doing manufacturing of turntables in Kentucky. Also, people don't realize that Crosley is an American company, as is Victrola. They're not Chinese companies. That's another hard pill to swallow. Oh man, we're just having to come to Jesus today on this stuff, and I love it. Thank you, Laverne. I appreciate it. Are there still record changers out there today, says Mark? There are, but only in the secondhand market. Audiophiles used to hate, and still do sometimes, record changers. Like my Technics SLB5 would be looked down upon because it's a changer, even though it is a great turntable. It's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it. I love it. Early Coral and Decca records were made that way, out of styrene. Yeah, I've got a Coral 45 over here, the Decca over there we saw. Salvation Army, absolutely. That's true. It would last a lot longer. A higher end turntable will usually last a lot longer. I agree. Suitcase players last more than 2 years. Sometimes they last a month or two. Sometimes they're dead on arrival. In IT, we used to call it crib death. It was like, open it up, the server is... But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they last a long time. We're going to be featuring a vintage, cheap record player from Japan on this channel very soon. A little bit of a hint. Coming your way. Very popular overseas. Probably know what that is. Japanese entry level. Ceramic. The Japanese are involved in ceramic? I can't believe this. But it's true. There's a lot of what we believe about things we would be shocked to learn aren't necessarily true. And when I find out, because we like Rolls Royces, Yeah. There we go. Sorry, threw me off there. Yes. A Rolls Royce can get a flat tire. Oh, maybe it has self-inflating tires. I don't know. Yeah, we're not back on track. Usually I'm way off track. It's an analogy. The Rolls Royce is an analogy. It's the expensive record player versus the Yugo cheap record player. Oh, yes, they can be compared, Salvation Army. A 3600 and a CZ800 can absolutely. And it is bootleg. Well, I don't call it bootleg. It's a clone. We'll call it clone. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think they make the CZ800 anymore. Brady says, I love my $118 Retro Life turntables on the Audio Technica LP3, LP70. LP3 is so cool. I love that thing. I've been thinking about mine. I miss it. That's great. You got it on a good deal. The speakers that ruin the turntable from vibration on a suitcase player or an all-in-one built-in speakers. I mean, yeah, you have, like right now, my Fluence AI61s are not on the same surface as my turntable. Oh, that's not true. My Sony is on this, but my other one here, not. Ideally, you don't want your speakers on. Subwoofer is definitely away on a separate playing surface. But yeah, the vibrations, you've got two types of transducers, canceling each other out, the microphone and the speaker. That's not good, right? So you want them separate. But the frequencies and the quality of sound on an all-in-one or a suitcase player, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. So people that say, if it has built-in speakers, it's crap. Go look at my Stackstone review, my recent one especially. That's one of the finest things we've ever reviewed. Built-in speakers, everything you need, all in one. It's made of wood and metal. It's not cheap. It's heavy. It's like a boat anchor, very non-resonant. It's very, very good built-in speakers. So you can't make that argument. People that say if the record hangs over the edge, it's junk. If all these ifs, this, if that, you have to be careful because there's exceptions to the rule, and there's so many different designs. There's so many different engineers that have worked on these designs that we're doing a disservice to come up with a blanket approach. And especially when we're saying anything from China, anything made since some year or whatever. Billy Vaughn on the old ceramic with the tubers. I bet that's a warm, roasty, toasty sound. That's cool. Keith, welcome in, my friend. Oh, nice. You got your front loader fixed. This is one of my front loaders, a 49 Philco. Still have that little MPK 7-inch front loader that works. I thought about cannibalizing it to. I'm still working on my 46 Philco slot loading record player, and I was gonna maybe modify it to run because I ended up gutting it instead of totally restoring it. This one's fully restored, original. That one I'm turning it into something else, and I thought about using the MPK thing, which I modified. Now it only tracks at 5 grams. It tracked it. Salvation Army, check this out. It tracked at 10+ grams. It was too heavy, but that's because somebody had, when it was manufactured, the tone arm inside has a selectable tracking force adjustment where to put the spring, and it's actually a clamp spring, like a lot of like record players that are designed to get played upside down. Instead of the tracking force making it, pushing up, it was pulling down, kind of a thing. But I just adjusted it to the right position. It worked fine. Actually, you can do more damage to a record tracking too light than you can too heavy in most cases. If you take a ceramic CZ800 and track it at 1.5 grams on your records, that's going to do some damage. By the way, I don't know who it is, if the person's on here or not. Came up with something that blew my mind today. I thought it was brilliant. And they said, and it's true, and I never thought of it this way, but it's brilliant. They said your record itself is powering the cartridge. Now we know that a phono cartridge is a passive device. There's no electricity supplied to it. It is totally passive. It generates an electric signal. Just like a speaker receives an electrical signal, turns it into mechanical movement. A phono cartridge, like a microphone, takes mechanical movement. In this case, the vibrations of the groove. In the case of a passive microphone, sound pressure, and converts it into electrical impulses that are then amplified. And I think that that's fascinating, because that means that the record itself is powering it, and therefore the compliance, which is how flexible the cartridge, this cantilever is. So the little thing at the tip of the stylus, between the little thing sticking out the bottom there. Here, I'll use the wall as you can see the little thing sticking out there. That's the cantilever. And that is essentially like think of it like a joystick or a shifter in a vehicle, which is transferring information. And the compliance means how loose or how tight that is. Like a cheap ceramic is going to be tighter. It's going to be less compliant. It's going to be harder for it to move. It would take more force. Therefore, those grooves are experiencing more wear and tear because it's stiffer and it's taking more movement to drag it through there. There's friction that happens. The act of friction is what makes it possible. And that's what makes time travel possible. And a higher end cartridge, like the one I was actually showing, is much more compliant, meaning that cantilever is looser and it's, it flops around a little easier. So it tracks, it's less gentler. It's less wear and tear on your record. But damage to records was never the premise of the video, which I promise we're going to get to those. People are 40 minutes in and we're still doing it. I got to get caught up here because there's a lot of good stuff here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you for joining me. No matter if you agree with me or think I'm an idiot. I'm glad you're here. Oh, absolutely. Scope creep, mission creep, gatekeeping, exactly. Get what makes sense to you. I agree. Marantz didn't make its record play. It doesn't surprise me. Yeah, we did a Marantz linear tracker, the kind you can kind of operate like a CD player. You pick the tracks. We've done a few linear trackers. That was a borrowed one. That was a That was a loaner unit. Laverne Hodge, thank you so much. Welcome to the Inner Circle. I am so glad that you are joining a membership program. By the way, 99 cents a month, and you too can join the program. Exclusive access to content, etc. Gary, welcome in, my friend. So 1975 is still on the website. Okay, good to know. Clear audio. Oh, the new Marantz. Yeah, this was a vintage 80s one. Dual changers. Yeah, I've had, but watch my video I did years ago called My Battle, Losing a Battle with a Dual, something about a battle with the dual. Yeah, it's crispier, isn't it, Craig? The styrene. It's got a more contrasty, crispier sound. I don't think they sound bad at all. I like the sound too. It's kind of suited to 50s music, especially. Oh, interesting about the Macintosh. Oh, the Zenith Cobra-matic. That's a cool record player. That is cool. Very, very cool. Oh, really? A Sony front loader with a rare needle. Interesting. Realistic made some good stuff. I like Realistic stuff. That's the kind of stuff we could afford when I was a kid. Riga. I've never reviewed Riga. Riga is a minimalist design, not too unlike U-Turn. It's good stuff from what I understand. People love it, but I prefer the knobs, the bells, the whistles, the strobe markings. I kind of like all the controls versus something that's minimalist design. That's my personal thought on that. I heard that We Are Rewind is introducing a brand new cassette boombox. I have not heard that. Somebody told me they stopped offering Bluetooth on their cassette players, which is weird to me. Because, I mean, not weird to me. It's interesting to me. I went on their website. It still looks like they have it on the website. I've used it a couple of times. I think it's pretty cool. A cartridge is a generator. Well, a generator, you would apply power to generate power. Well, but then you got your generator in your car, which takes the already existing. Yeah, I can say that. Unless, I refer to the internal workings of a cartridge as the generator. So yeah, that's fair. Oh, the flips, Bampa flips. I've got a couple of those. Yeah, I got another one recently. I need to do another show on it. Craig, what are you talking about? Groove is a deep tunnel holding sound like an echo chamber, and the stylus is a hollow tube. What are you talking about? Tell me all about it. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to get to the point of this video. I keep commenting, by the way. I'll jump back in there if we have time later. I love your comments. I love reading them. I like being challenged, corrected, educated, all that good stuff. Some of these comments I've already responded to. Some of them I haven't. I'm not going to say who did it necessarily, like who left. I'm not going to take the time to attribute these. I'm just going to kind of fly by, summarize them. One of the first comments we got was ceramic cartridges have no RIAA curve, as the magnetic cartridge does have an RIAA curve. And he goes on. That's an interesting point. So the RIAA curve, which is an EQ curve, basically, for those that don't know, applies an EQ that is opposite of the way the records are recorded. That is, if you have an RIAA compliant record, which most mid 50s and later records are. Some late 40s LPs, early 50s aren't, but most everything after that was. So basically, they can fit more bassy dynamic music into a thinner, smaller, tightly compact groove setup, therefore more music on a record if they zapped all the bass out of it and pumped all the treble. They shrink it down, compress it. It's got like a compression technology algorithm in a way. And then on playback, the preamp circuit, in the case of the moving magnetic, actually adds back in that RIAA curve, which is essentially boosting the bass and bringing down the treble. So it's kind of like this curve and this curve meet, and then they end up with a flat EQ curve that the sound engineer designed. So it neutralizes it. And if you, not all records are designed to play that way. Anything pre-55, 78s, old LPs, old 45s weren't mastered that way. It's not going to sound as good. Again, we're talking about EQ here, but magnetic cartridges need to have the RIAA applied. They don't inherently have a curve to them, but the preamp, your phono preamp, adds that in. Now, it's a little bit interesting on the case of ceramics because the cartridge itself isn't going to add any kind of curve, just like a magnetic isn't going to add any kind of a curve. And it doesn't need a preamp because a line level output is what you get out of the ceramic, which is why they're often used in many cases. So the cheaper circuitry needed because, like I said in the video, you don't need a preamp circuit. So it's a part saved. And most people, the entry-level consumer, the mass market impulse buyer, doesn't know the difference, and therefore there's no added value, and there's no reason for the entry-level product to have it from the standpoint of marketing to an entry-level consumer. But the amplification can add the RIAA, and there are also preamps for select ceramic types, vintage types, and things that are designed to do things with the sound. It's a little bit, especially when you get a vintage, it was done in a few different ways. Kind of interesting, but for the most part, that would be handled in the amplification of the signal. It's not fair to say that a ceramic has no curve in it, and that's why it sounds I shouldn't say it's not fair, because every opinion, every bit of information is fair and possibly accurate. But to my understanding, the case is that the EQ curve is added in at the amplification or pre-amplification stage. Is that the opening music to Pee-wee's Playhouse? No, but I get. At first, I was like, "What?" But it's a similar thing. It's a similar song to the opening. It's not the actual song. Let's see here. Most people have both. That's true. I have both ceramic and magnetic through headphones. I'm sorry to say the magnetic is best. And see, that's what's funny is you don't have to be apologetic. I'm not trying to convince or just persuade somebody necessarily. It's entertainment. This is edutainment. I try to say this is edutainment. So if you find enlightenment or knowledge, that's fine, but mostly it's for the entertainment value. That being said, I'm never going to lie. I'm always going to tell you the truth. I'm always going to tell you exactly what I believe to be the truth. And so you don't need to apologize and say that you disagree with me. That's fine. Disagree with me. In this case, you're actually agreeing with me, because with the headphones on the direct feed, the magnetic wins. And I said that in the video. The magnetic sounds way more open, way more high resolution. The resolution alone is astoundingly different. What I was talking about, the premise of the video and the payoff of the video, is in the room. The ambient sound test, the ceramic edged it out, in my opinion. Now you can have yours, and I hope you do, but the sound in the room, and you may be saying, well, what does that have to do with the cartridge? Well, it may be the amplifier, maybe the speakers, like I said in the video. But the point is, a ceramic can beat a magnetic phono cartridge. In that case, in the room, listening to those two record players, the ceramic won. It was warmer, it was fuller, it was way more present. There was more punch to it. You couldn't tell the resolution difference on those speakers, either one. You know what I mean? Even though they are both decent units. It's amazing that the ceramic was $39. I'm surprised nobody was more impressed with the fact that it's $39. It does a whole lot of stuff for $39. Okay, so we got a comment here about hooking up a ceramic cartridge to bigger speakers. That does help a little bit. It doesn't correct every problem that a ceramic has in terms of resolution and compliance and more tracking force and all that stuff. But you can get better sound by hooking up to bigger sound systems. This person says the ceramic on the direct feed sounded really poor, like you're standing in an elevator, too wide, too bright, and lack of bass and mid and dynamics overall. And this is also the person that said 3600 is known for its very wide stereo separation. I agree 100%. Well, there wasn't much of a difference in the ambient test. It was subtle. It wasn't like a life-altering difference. The ceramic sounded awful in the direct feed. Definitely not as good as the magnetic. This person says, I don't feel your initial premise was demonstrated there. In fact, or in the first listen, it wasn't down to the ceramic cartridge. It's kind of better. It was the amplification speakers. Exactly my point. And then the direct feed demonstrated the superiority of the magnetic cartridge. Agreed. Really not a fair comparison, since they both use that ambiguous POS Chinese mechanism. I dare you to put a ceramic cartridge on a Denon DF47F piece. That's a separate thing. Piece as in piece. From a viewer of the channel who's been a stalwart companion of ours for many years. And I appreciate everybody being here, being there, commenting, watching, engaging. Very much appreciated. I think it is a fair comparison. And I think that the ambiguous or ubiquitous POS Chinese mechanism isn't bad. I know that sounds like, if people are like, think that's the worst thing ever, is that Skywin. There's more than one company, and there's more design. If you look close, there's variations. They're not all identical. I don't think it's the best. No, I don't think it's the best at all. But it's adequate. It gets the job done. It can be implemented good. If it's got a decent motor, it's a decent performer. I've seen them have really good speed. You have a pitch knob on there. The speed can be adjusted. It's fine. Does it have probably a higher wow and flutter because of low mass inertia of the plastic platter? Of course. Is that going to show up on a suitcase player? No, not audibly in most cases. If it does, that's a problem. It's happened before. We've pointed it out. As for the live test, both were equally bleep sounding, kind of like a cheap AM radio. So comparison isn't really possible. In the direct test, the ceramic was definitely peaky in the mid-range. To see what the ceramic cartridge is capable, it should be placed in a much more massive head shell to lower the tone arm resonant frequency. An interesting idea there. Do a review of the Victrola Eastwood LP instead of Eastwood 2. I think you'll find it sounds much better. We did review that, absolutely. I don't understand what this one means. The Audio-Technica mounts vintage arms. I'm not sure what that one means. A couple folks sharing experiences with their ceramics and things. This person says, okay, I'm only listening on my cell phone right now, so the tonal balance is out the window. I concentrated on clarity and distortion. Magnetic puts out less tracing distortion. It follows the music like a fuzzy picture on the ceramic. You can like a fuzzy picture on the ceramic. You can correct, and I agree, that fuzzy low resolution, I noticed that too. You can correct the bounce with EQ, but you're never going to be able to replace the resolution that you don't get with a magnetic, that you don't get with the ceramic, that you do get with a magnetic. The arm compliance on a cheap player may be too low for a typical magnetic. That's interesting. So both of the units that I used yesterday had a similar tone arm and a plastic basic gimbal, which has certain compliance itself. We talk about the compliance of a cantilever, but what about the compliance of the tone arm? After all, that stylus, that cantilever, is pulling not only the needle through the groove, it's not really pulling, it's tracing, but it's also that record as it rotates and the stylus tracks the groove closer and closer to the spindle, is also pulling on that tone arm. And you've got also turntables that have anti-skate. Entry-level suitcase players, they don't have anti-skate. All the ones, no anti-skate. I'm sure the Sound Beast and the Victrola that we know, even though the Victrola had a magnetic, there's no anti-skate applied on that, okay? If there is, it's spring-based and it's preset. And maybe there, I need to look. I've had those apart a lot, those types of units. I should look. I don't think there's any anti-skate. I'm just guessing. But even with an anti-skate, they're still going to rely on the stylus dictating the position, pulling that tone arm to the middle as it goes. And if it's too stiff, the tone arm itself and the gimbal is really what it's about, then it's going to be harder to pull, and that will cause wear as well. So that's definitely something to consider. This person says the Decaderum was a very popular ceramic cartridge. That's really cool. I have to look into that. I have heard some fantastic. There's a lot of people that just think that any ceramic, and let's just take the CZ800 out of it, any ceramic of any type, of any era, is bad and will sound low resolution. I have heard some amazing high resolution ceramics. In fact, I should get a high performance vintage ceramic and do a show about that. Maybe do a blind sound test. That sounds like a fun show. I have to write that in my little book of ideas. But ceramics can sound great. The CZ800 Chuo Denshi clones are not the best ceramics. Okay, they're not. They're functional. They're low. You know, I actually argue that you can get hi-fi sound out of them, but it's not the best sound. It's a lower resolution sound. But those are by far not the best ceramics that have ever existed. There's a lot of better ceramics. A lot of vintage record players, portables, and vintage units mostly were ceramics. The Sonotone that's in this guy right back here, and many others. The ceramic reigned supreme for so long. Conical ceramics, which leads to one of my favorite little hacks. Let's see how many people are on here still. Okay, there's some people on here still. I don't want to give it away to too many people. Just kidding. But if you've got a worn out vintage record you get at the thrift store, and you're like, man, I like this record, but it's so poppy and crackly, and you've done a spin clean or ultrasonic, and it still sounds crackly and pop. It's worn out. Let's say it's wearing out. I would say there's a 95% chance, maybe even a little higher, 97% chance that record was worn out by a ceramic, more importantly, conical stylus, which, let's say this is a profile of a record groove. What's something I can use as a visual here? Okay, so here's the tip of a ceramic needle going in the groove. See where it's touching the groove? This is a gross representation. Gross in the sense of this is very generalized, very generalized. Where is it touching in the groove? Right in the middle, right? But you come along with a higher quality, and so all the wear is going to be, all that noise that you're hearing is right there. All the wear is right there. But guess what? Down here, oh, it's brand new. It's untouched. So you take a stylus, an elliptical, Shibata, something that rides deeper in the groove, and guess what? It fits down deeper in that groove, and now you're tracking with this, bypassing all of the worn information. All that to say, you can make a worn out record that was worn out on a conical sound like not new again, but better, a lot better by using it with an elliptical. But that record, because that stylus is all the way down in that groove where all the grit and dirt and grime is, you have to make sure it's clean. So there has to be spotless. Any dirt and grit down there will be much more noticeable with an elliptical. All right, comments, catch-up time. Scott's listening to records while watching it. I love that. That's cool. Well, I know maybe you think the ceramic sounded better. Ceramic has a higher output than a diamond stylus with the smaller boxes. A ceramic sounds better because the sound would be much richer. And that was really my point, is that it was richer in the room. It sounded richer in the room. Now, I have to share that through YouTube, which is obviously digital audio, and it's compressed, lossy compression at that. But in the room, the ceramic was more warm and more punchy, and you couldn't hear the resolution difference because of the crappy small speakers. And it is great for 78s because of the low compliance, higher tracking force. Absolutely great. You put get a Cruiser is one of the best, and I say all suitcase players. They're some of the greatest 78 players. If you get the proper stylus for that, you just get an upgraded stylus for that Chuo Denshi clone. You've got yourself an incredible little 78 player. The mass inertia comes from the weight of the shellac disc. You've got a low compliant ceramic record, a stylus and cartridge. It's one of the best ways to play 78. I need to do another show about that. I'm sure we've done that before. I think I've done that before, like the best 78 player. Yeah, all you got to do is get a cheap record player, spend a little bit less than you spend on the record player for an upgraded stylus, and you've got yourself an incredible 78 player with no RIAA needed. Alyosha, welcome in, and I'm glad to hear that the Angels form is working out for you. I know, we got a different crowd. I go earlier and I get different people in here, and I'm glad for everybody being here. Be aware that ceramic will degrade much faster than a diamond stylus. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Like old crystal cartridges, dry out, wear out. But they're $5 for 3 of them. It's like, and they're replaceable. So, burn it out, run it into the ground. You ever get to that point with a car? Like if you're financing a car and you're like, all right, am I keeping this or am I trading it in? And once you make the decision, you're going to run it into the ground. That's what it is with a ceramic cartridge. Run it into the ground. Just use it until you can't anymore. At the drive-in swap, there was a tone arm with a card in the box. That's cool. Oh yeah, the diamond. And when he said diamond, I meant, I was thinking, I was guilty of that. Ceramics can have diamond styli, and conversely, magnetic cartridges can have sapphires. But nobody's got a ceramic stylus. That would be bad. Little piece of pottery dragging through the groove. I think some people think that. I think there's people out there that literally think There's a chip of pottery being dragged. Can you imagine? A porous pottery. Crystal carts, I don't think many of them are working. I actually have I think my little Philips Norelco record player has I think it might have a crystal that's been either rebuilt or it survived. Most of them don't. This probably actually had a crystal originally, which was similar technology to the piezoelectric technology that's used in a ceramic. Uncle Dan, oh, you've looked at the higher end ceramics? I haven't really looked into them. A buddy of mine will find all this stuff. He's like he's my connection. So I'll just say, hey, find me a good vintage working high quality ceramic, and it'll show up in a brown paper package on my front door right after I pay for it. Compliance is only important for needles tracking light. Say 2 grams or less. Anything above 2 grams will track good, even with the wrong anti-skate setting. That's interesting. I don't think I've heard that before. I look for the maybe use an old Philips flip over needle. I have a Philips. In fact, that one I was talking about has a flip over cartridge. Those are fun. Also, my classroom player, the sound, what is it? Soundtronics, something sound. Audiotronics has a flip over. It's also great for playing 78s. Jody says, have you ever come across a 45 or LP that wasn't pressed at the correct speed, causing you to have to turn it up or down the pitch to get this? That's really interesting. So you have to be pretty intimate with your music in order to know if the pitch is wrong. I don't think I've ever had a record that was pressed at the wrong speed. I'm trying to think. I've had some CDs. There's a lot of early Glenn Miller bootleg CDs that are pressed at the wrong speed. And usually Glenn Miller's voice sounds too high pitched. I'm so intimate with the sound of his voice. Patsy Cline music, I can tell immediately if it's out of pitch. Stuff that I've listened to, I've learned to memorize what that pitch should be. So I think it depends on how familiar you are. I don't think I've had that happen with a record though, Jody. Have you had that happen? That's really interesting. We had a Gerard, however you say it. I get corrected either way. We did one. It was right out of a console. In fact, it was just the mechanism with the guts underneath it, and it had no cabinet. It was cool. Interesting. Scott's got an input on that. Elvis Presley Girl Happy soundtrack was a bit fast. Interesting. I think that's what she's talking about. Yeah. The error in the mastering that then gets pressed. Thingiverse has an adapter you can print and use ceramic on the standard head shell. I'd have tried that. But again, you're going to have to track it at 5 or 6 grams. You can't, I promise you, you put a ceramic Chuodenshi clone, track it at 1.5 grams, and you're going to have a chicken carver combo. Man, I miss the chicken carver combo. We don't have any Boston Market restaurants out here. Not that I know of. Boston Market's chicken carver combo with a side of the corn, the mac and cheese. Colorado. I miss these little things. And with this sweltering heat lately, 94 degrees, 300% humidity, and it's getting worse. We got about 10 more degrees to go over the next couple of months. The cool temperatures are sounding appealing. And spending the Sunday afternoon in here. Yesterday, we went over to Universal Studios, and it was fun. A lot of fun stuff to do over there. I saw the Jason Bourne stunt show thing. I have never seen anything like that in my life. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Basically, a theater with a screen, like an IMAX wraparound Cinerama kind of screen, which was an 8K. If you've never seen 8K, makes 4K look like a ceramic cartridge. But if you've never seen an 8K display, photorealistic. That's all I can say. And what they did is they had these incredible backdrops, which were animated film or high resolution animations, and actors on the screen and in real life on the stage. Now, stage has all these things that can fall through tracks in the ceiling, trapdoors, and all this stuff. And so you've got all this action, gunfire. You've got people swinging in on lines and all this stuff, but it's synced perfectly with what's on screen. So you feel like you're in the movie like I've never experienced before. I am a filmmaker by trade. I am that's my industry. I came from making movies and television, more television than movies. But when I see some new kind of cinema, live theater, hybrid come together like that, it's intriguing to me, very intriguing. One of the coolest things ever is imagine this action scene. They're on top of a roof in Abu Dhabi or something. Now they've rolled out, I don't know if you've seen, modern rides use this technology a lot, but they've rolled out the top of a building, which comes out like a giant prop on stage. It's all robot controlled, motorized, seamless, and it rolls out. And so a lot of the times the backdrop would be going like this in the background, like he's running down the street or something. And so you see the 8K resolution of the street, the people walking by and all that stuff. But then they would time out so that a prop would be moving. How do I do this? So you've got a prop moving at the exact same, this is 3-dimensional. This is out there on the stage, and it's tracking at the exact same speed as the film in the background, which adds incredible depth. But then this is what blew, I'll get back to record players in a minute. I've got a lot of nerdy hobbies, guys. I can go down rabbit trails all day. But what really blew my mind is there was this scene, imagine this, I think they were in like, I don't know, someplace in the Middle East, and you've got this backdrop in the Middle East. Actors on stage, actors on screen, blending and meshing together. It already looks so real. And they're jumping from rooftop to rooftop. And you've got this prop, which is the top of a building. And he's jumping from one to the other. He jumps on here. Well, the camera, the shot in the background does a tilt and a pan. So obviously the screen is physically there, but the shot rotates and lowers. Actually, did it rotate and lower? Just rotate. It must have just rotated. No, it rotated and lowered. It rotated and lowered. Anyway, the prop on the stage was synced to the camera movement of what you saw on screen, and it also rotated and lowered out of the stage. It was incredible. And I think there's been some clips leaked online. You could go look it up. The Bourne Ultimatum, something like that. Extreme stunt show, spectacular. It was amazing. This is not at the new Epic Universe. This is at the Universal Studios, the main one. Not Islands of Adventure either. But it was just thoroughly impressive. I loved it. It was the technology. And I'm thinking, what else could you do with this? Can you imagine if you were to do like an immersive classic movie like Citizen Kane, Wizard of Oz, and then add that 3-dimensional layer on stage with that technology where it's synced to the film? Oh, it was super cool, dude. And then you got there was a scene, another one where these two cars are on stage, full-size car props, and the tires are physically moving. They're spitting up, there's sounds, screaming wheels, and these guys on top of machine guns, and the smoke, and the cars are on stage, and they're tilting, and they're trying to catch each other. Guys trying to jump from the one to the other, and then in the background, the screen, of course, is a POV going down the road, and then the car's position would change as the screen would turn. Man, it was cool. But you can go out there and look. There's another scene with a motorcycle and a police car chasing it. Dude, it was cool. Okay. Whew. I had to share that with somebody. Okay. We're back. Sorry, guys. Wow, 28 people made it through that. Give yourself a round of applause. Sometimes record labels would speed up recordings to fit them on one side of 45. Have I heard that? That is sounding familiar now that I've heard about it. That's an interesting thought. Billy Joel's Cold Spring Harbor was mastered at the wrong speed. Also, there's a Beatles thing. I forget which one of their, probably Sgt. Pepper era songs. And they did a lot of multi-tracking in the studio where they would record something and play it back. And they had a tape machine that was running slow. And so his pitch, I forget whose voice is, Lennon or McCartney's voice changes pitch at one point in the song. And now it's like considered artistic, like it was meant to be that way. But apparently that was a technical error. People that put a penny on the cartridge, I always advise not doing that because you can take a 5 or 6 gram tracking force stylus cartridge and throw it over 10 grams, which you will damage your record. There is a transition point from wear to damage. So I always did. We've done experiments with it. Unless you're playing a 78, I wouldn't put a penny on the tone arm. Scott agrees. It's hot here in Florida. It's hot here in Florida. And it's long. It's like the opposite of Colorado. We have the long, unbearable winters, the 9-month winters. Here we have the 9-month summers. I still think it's beautiful. Thank God every day I walk out there, I'm like, yes, it's beautiful. It's paradise. The new Matt Damon movie, Born Sinelli. Motown Master the 45 is loudly to sound good on cheap play. Yeah, I think there's compression done for that as well. Oh, that's interesting. TV nostalgia. That's interesting. Okay, let me fly through some more of these comments. You guys have been very patient. We've done an hour and 16 minutes already. I don't want to keep you all day. Mostly, a lot of people said that the ceramic did not sound good, especially on the direct feed. Some people conceded with me that it sounds better ambiently in the room. That was my point. That's what I still feel. I agree. The magnetic sounded better in the direct feed, as you would hope it would, and the ceramic sounded inferior. Not everybody agreed with my premise that the ceramic sounded good even ambiently, though. And I think that, again, it's my opinion to yours. My ears may be tuned differently than yours. We may hear sound differently. You ever think about that? What I hear may be different than what you hear. So, or I may find a certain sound equalization more pleasurable than you do. Maybe what I think is good is grating to somebody else. So to say something is good, bad, you're right, you're wrong, is a lot of, it's a very personal, and I'm trying to think of a word. There's a word, I use it a lot because this whole hobby is based around it. Basically, it's in the eye of the beholder. You know, what you hear is subject to your own personal interpretations. Zenith Micro Touch 2G. I got to check that out too. This person says ceramic one sounded like an old radio with a single speaker. Kind of compressed, yeah. And I think that's why maybe it sounded better on those little speakers than the one that was probably. Think about this. What if the magnetic cartridge, subjective, thank you very much. It's very subjective. Everybody's screaming, it's subjective. Say subjective. What if, let's say this, okay, go with me here. Let's say the sound spectrum capacity of sound of that speaker on the built-in units is this, okay? And then you've got the sound that's coming out of the magnetic is like this. You overlay this dynamic range to this dynamic range, the speaker's dynamic range. You're only getting a little bit. You're not getting the super highs and super lows. You're just getting an overlay. So you're getting like 30% of this. Whereas the ceramic only has this to begin with because it's a much lower resolution. But the speaker has the same or similar dynamic range, and therefore with the ceramic in the room on the speaker, we were getting the ceramic cartridge's full spectrum of sound because it was in tune with the small speaker, whereas the magnetic higher resolution. It's kind of like trying to get a job at a fast food restaurant when you have a master's degree. It may not be a good thing because the fast food place may not want somebody with more dynamic range of experiences that don't align with what they want in an employee, or vice versa. It's kind of an interesting analogy. Maybe I'm off base there. I don't know. For the difference in price, I'll take the sound beast, says this person. Real wood must make some difference in the sound. I think the wood makes a difference when you're talking about super high-end headphones and speakers, but I don't know. On an entry-level thing, I think it's more like it's a nostalgic thing, and I think people like wood, vintage. Although I think now that the entry-level stuff is moving away from the vintage wood kind of thing. This person says you're spot on. I'm totally surprised. This person brings up a good point. Output of the ceramic is likely higher, aka louder, which can fool you into thinking it sounds better. I think that's a good point as well. In the test that I ran yesterday, subjective test, right? I tried very hard to make sure that the sound pressure, the volume level, was identical. Not on the value on the knob, but to my ears. Like this volume sounds the same volume as that, because I agree. If you turn one down a little bit, one up, oh, this sounds good. You will notice the brightest, highest contrast, sharpest focus, loudest thing anywhere in any room. So the loud one gets the attention. Oh, that's the better one. I agree. That's a very good point. But I tried really hard to keep it at the same sound pressure. The magnetic sounded way better with a direct feed. This person also recommends I might have reframed the video. But I think I have a good premise there. I think I stuck to it. This person says, I just turned 64, and in the ancient times of the 1970s, that's not the ancient times. I was in the 1970s. Yeah, a lot of stuff had ceramics and ruby stylus. I feel like maybe people weren't as critical about gear back then. Am I wrong? Maybe people have always been critical about stuff, but I feel like there's more openness perhaps now than there used to be. I don't know. Or more openness back then than there is now. This person recommends me looking at crystal, which we've done. Sound, the Victrola sound was thin but more detailed. I would agree, but much better than their first player. A lot of people say that. They say that even these entry-level ones are better or equal to a lot of the entry-level stuff they had. Entry-level is entry-level. A lot of people can't get past the idea we're an entry-level channel. Why are you entry-level when you can be high-end? Maybe I can't be high-end, but it's an entry-level channel. It's going to stay that way. So we're going to keep looking at this stuff. It's an important part of the market, and there's plenty of other YouTube out there doing the high-end stuff. A lot of people sharing stories about growing up with ceramics, and a lot of people on here saying that the magnetic is light years ahead of the ceramic. One person says the difference isn't in sound, it's in how it will damage or not your record. Thought the direct feed was night and day. Ambient was close, but direct feed, it was close. The Victrola sounded a lot better. The ceramic trumpet sound muffled. Moving magnet, better to me where you actually had music. The music choice wasn't great because a scream is just a scream. I could hear more detail with the Victrola moving magnet. Tried to find stuff that's as dynamic as possible. This person says I sometimes prefer ceramic. This person says the best ceramic cartridges were made by Microacoustics in the early 80s to compete with moving magnet and even moving coil cartridge, but they weren't cheap either. I think that's something that people now just associate ceramic with cheap, probably because there's so many of the CZ800 clones out there. I mean, there's a billion of them. There's more than a billion. There's billions upon billions of them. The magnetic cartridge is better. The ceramic had its highs somewhat recessed, which gives a more warm overall presentation, but the magnetic cartridge has a more detailed and holographic presentation. It's a good descriptive way to describe it. The ceramic would sound good if the amplifier in the Sound Beast, or whatever it was, had a high impedance which could improve the bass response and some EQ, or a bass response and some AQ. In my opinion, all phono cartridges need EQ. Magnetic, of course, needs RIAA, while ceramic just needs a little dip around 5 hertz. If limited to either of these players, I'd stick with CD. But then they followed up, or this person, a different person followed up and said, vinyl has always sounded terrible. I grew up in the 70s where we didn't have any choice. Interesting. They are not going back to physical media. Person says they prefer tapes, the LPs. That's why most people change to CDs, this other person says. Not as good as CDs, even compared with 90s compact boomboxes. That's another controversial stance that I have. I love CDs, and they are arguably better from a technical standpoint, sound perspective, than vinyl records. Are they less warm, generally speaking? Yes, they're cooler, more clinical, but technically speaking, it's a far superior signal. But maybe that's not best. Maybe technically better isn't the best from a standpoint of just objective listening. I often choose my records over CDs, but sometimes I go the other way. Are you kidding? The ceramic lacks of bass response and sounds nasal. I would agree. Ceramic cartridges can sound okay. Just remember that they require far higher tracking weight and wear out really quickly. So you have to figure, we talked about that, figure in the cost of replacement. And the last one on here right now says it's amazing that a single needle can produce stereo. It's all due to the 90-degree offset of coils on the yoke and electromagnetism law. That's an interesting thing. I need to do a show on how you can get stereo from a singular groove. It truly is interesting. It's also why if you are playing a mono record, which is modulated only left to right, you need to, or one that's modulated only up and down, that you need to get a proper mono cartridge. All right, let me get caught up on comments, and we will say goodbye for now. I appreciate you guys being here. I really do. Oh, I got you. The penny for unmounting it under the head shell. Okay, got you. I got you. You're good. You can always counterbalance that off, right? Pennies can be a good wedge for different work. I remember reading that Buck Owens records were mastered to sound good on old AM car radios. And I think that goes with a lot. The mono master of early 60 records, especially in late 50s, were designed to sound good in the car on little transistor radios. Therefore, the stereo records often featured completely different mixes. It's kind of fun to hear both and see how they compare. Interesting about the Stevie Wonder song. I'll check it out. Are you going to get a Fluence RT87, says Alex? I don't know. I have no plans to now, but maybe I should. We reviewed the 85N. Great turntable. Not a huge fan of the Naga Oka MP110. I think it's a good moving. Is it moving iron? I think it might be a moving iron cartridge, but it's good cartridge, but it doesn't sound that much different than a 3600 to me, which is good. It sounds great. But if I can get that same sound from a $12 cartridge versus a $100 cartridge, I just don't think it's up to the par with an Audiophile 2M red or blue. I think they put a blue on that, 2M blue, which does have the exact same cartridge. The stylus is the only difference between the red and the blue. One's a bonded, one's a nude. So you can turn your red, $100 red into like a $250 blue if you upgrade the stylus. Same cartridge. Hello from Colorado. Having a wonderfully blessed day, my friend. Thank you so much. Are you familiar with the Varco TNA4 ceramic cartridge, which has the double-sided flip-over stylus? Wow, I got to check that out. No, I got to check that out, though. I'm intrigued. I need to do that. Thank you for jumping in, Scott. I appreciate it. BSR record changes. Oh yeah, I remember those. We've done shows about the BSR. We've done the upgraded version. I can never think of it. I always want to say Gerard, but it's the Glenburn. The Glenburn, which was like an offshoot for project from BSR. Had one of those. It was pretty fun. That's the one we whittled down the spindle to change the speed. CDs are better than vinyl. And I also have a channel devoted to vinyl records. Isn't it funny how... And if, boy, you say anything is the best, better, worse, my opinion, your opinion, I like, I don't like, and boy, people will jump all over it. Got 2 BSRs for used up records. I like the BSRs. I think they're cool. And I've heard this a lot too. The BSR changers were the worst. They were worse than modern suitcase players. I personally don't mind them. BSR also designed the modern suitcase player mechanism. Yeah, I agree. The MP110 is not. It's not as open. I agree. I agree. You master it the right way, master a CD the right way, EQ it the right way, and it's fantastic. The depth, the lushness is so. I mean, that dynamic range on a CD is so incredible. BSR McDonald's, yep. I've seen those too. Yeah. Yeah, I had a Shure on my was it a Shure M44, I think, on my Glenburn changer, which was a BSR derivative. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.